Yo, what's up, fellas? I hope y'all boys having a good one. And today, y'all already know we back to it again. So today we with 3 ways to introduce a sexual vibe to y'all conversation, you and the girl. So first thing I want to talk about is sexual tension. It doesn't mean suddenly making the conversation explicit, right? So the goal, fellas, is the goal is to introduce a slightly more flirtatious, romantic undertone and see whether she plays along or not, right? So if she doesn't reciprocate, don't force into it, fellas. If she engages and contributes and plays along with to the vibe, you can continue naturally, right? So the first little technique I want to tell you about is it's called a sexual innuendo. So a sexual innuendo is when you say something that has an innocent meaning but can be also interpreted sexually. So I'm gonna give y'all boys an example. So let's pretend she say I'm actually pretty competitive. Let's pretend you say something like so you're the type that likes to make things difficult for me. And she might say maybe, and you might be like, I had a feeling. But the important part about that, fellas, isn't the sexual reference itself. It's the playful ambiguity, right? So you're not saying anything explicit. You're leaving room for her to interpret and decide whether she wants to play with that energy, right, herself. So the second technique I'm gonna show y'all boys is called playful sexual misinterpretation. Okay, so this right here, fellas, this is when she says something innocent and you deliberately interpret it in a slightly more suggestive way. Okay, so I'm gonna give y'all boys another example. So let's pretend she say something like, I like taking things slow. And let's say you might say something like, for interpretation, man, that's a interesting, man, that's a interesting choice of words, right? So let's pretend she says what, and let's say you might say something like, nothing, I'm behaving, right? And then you just move on naturally. So the joke works right there because you're creating a little tension and then not chasing it, right? You're basically communicating to her mind, into her, I noticed the double meaning, but I'm comfortable enough to not force it and not try to just throw it. And my third little technique is, for y'all boys, is bring the topic up directly, but naturally, right? So you don't always need a clever technique for this, right? So what I mean is, if the conversation naturally gets into dating or attraction or relationships or chemistry or maybe preferences, you can simply make the conversation a little more personal. So here's an example. Let's pretend she says, what makes you attracted to someone? And you might say something like, chemistry. The way two people interact when they're comfortable with each other. And I like physical attraction too, because that matters, obviously. But the energy between two people is what makes it very interesting for me. Then you could say you could follow up with something like, what about you? And now you've introduced attraction. And if y'all don't understand this, y'all could comment down below or join my Discord. The real skill here, fellas, is the real skill I want y'all boys to pick up on and know is, don't treat these techniques like buttons. you can press to make someone sexual, right? You're looking for the reciprocity, right? And I want y'all boys to know this. If she, jokes back or asks her own sexual innuendo or just innuendo, or teases you sexually, or asks you personal flirty questions, or keeps the conversation going, or comfortably participates in the flirtation, then the flirtatious tone may be welcome, right? If she gives short answers or changes the subjects or maybe seems uncomfortable or doesn't reciprocate, drop the sexual angle you try to throw in the conversation and return to normal conversation. And remember this, fellas, remember this. Flirting or one positive response isn't automatic consent for sexual touching or anything more intimate. Sexual consent has to be voluntary, very specific, communicated, and ongoing. Agreeing to one activity doesn't mean automatically agreeing to another, right? So I want y'all boys to really remember this, right? Always introduce and observe and reciprocate based off what you see and continue, right? So I want y'all boys to realize this, right? So let's say you introduce a light flirtatious vibe and you observe how she responds, and if she actively reciprocates energy, you can continue to playful energy. If she doesn't, you don't push it. You slow down and match her pace, right? That's what makes sexual attention feels real, natural, and not forced, fellas. And again, if y'all boys have any questions, come to my Discord or comment down below. And I'm going to see y'all on the next one.